Wednesday, April 29th, 9:03 a.m. What's up, everybody? Checking back in. Again, reminding everybody I do not have constitutional rights. I wake up every single day trying to work. I turn on CNBC and I see people discussing, people that have known about my work for years, people that have discussed my work publicly without paying me. And so while I continue to assess the markets, I can't emphasize enough how much crime is being committed against me. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8 of the United States Constitution gives me a right to my writings and discoveries. And what do you know? I turn on CNBC once again today in this great country that is the United States of America. And we have so much freedom and everybody's working hard. And what is Joe Kernan doing? A guy we really like to talk about here in this series. He's discussing words. And so pretty much one of the first things I wanted to talk about, as you can see, the market is not open. Not much on portfolio construction. I've not done an entry in the past 2 days or 2 trading sessions. Literally haven't been watching anything. And like I said, when I'm not having a position or having something immediate to talk about, I really don't watch this pretty much at all. But regardless, pop back on. And what is Joe Kernan talking about? Well, we have this discussion, which we'll get to the actual business and economics, but I want to start out with a legal citation, considering, again, it's destroying my property. I don't want to sit here and be citing law every single video. It bogs everything down. But I live in the United States of America, the most third-world fucking cesspool country that's ever existed. It pisses all over its constitution every single day, and then you get the lovely benefit of getting online, trying to work, getting paid nothing, and then seeing Joe Kernan say something like, "Uniquity should be a word. It was in the 16th century." So, Joe, if you go watch The Derivation, which is the most profound scientific discovery in human history, I put nice big colors up there so you can follow along and you can see all the words. And one of these dichotomistic pairs, this relationship between 2 words that we've discussed, is ubiquity and, what was the other one? Really, he's like, this is a direct, like if you took ubiquity, something that appears everywhere, and uniqueness, and stuffed it together, you would get the syllability of uniquity. And so Joe's over here again. Andrew Ross Sorkin is again rigorously, adamantly, routinely documented talking. The whole CNBC staff is aware of my work. They're all criminals, directly. But he's up there saying, again, it's like the first thing I turn on. It's just like, again, trying to do linguistical analysis by some fat fuck that's on CNBC, who literally the only thing that's ever gone through his head is like, is this what the red team's cheering for? Do I say yes? Is it the Republicans yet? Is this the Republicans yet? Again, as somebody who's negotiated the most important military truce in fucking history that goes well past what you see on TV, I don't have constitutional rights. So to see all these fat old people sitting there acting like they support the United States, and then they don't support the Constitution in any way, shape, or form, as a grown-ass man trying to have a career and a family, collect my property, and leave this third-world country, and just never think about this shithole again, it's impossible. Because you guys do not respect your own laws. And then I get online, and Joe Kernan's trying to do the thing that I do every day that no one's ever done before. No one's ever done linguistical analysis, which is just analysis. But now people become aware of my work. They violate the 5th Amendment. They don't respect Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8. And then it's just like, oh, everyone's stealing from Brad. Doesn't count. Fuck Brad's life. Nothing ever matters. Ha, ha, ha. The people that tortured me at St. Francis de Sales, they still get paychecks, healthcare, 401ks. The people at Ohio State University that lie, cheat, and steal every single day at a research capacity, they get paid every single day or every 2 weeks or whenever their pay periods are. Awesome. When does Brad get paid? Sweet. Still never. Awesome. Just really hammering that home. And so, back to our trading. I can't meaningfully trade because, well, I don't have cash flow because of all the things I just said. So, again, this is America in real time. This is the United States of America for the people in history that aren't privileged. Everything you're watching in science class right now, you see how it's all me? All of these other fucking people just lie, cheat, and steal and collect a paycheck and say, I hope you have a nice weekend, dude. Have a nice trip. Time for another break. We worked hard enough. And it's just like, legitimately, I don't even give a shit. Like, can I have enough money, which I have no income whatsoever. I cannot maintain a lifestyle. Like anything. Like nothing. I live at my parents' house with grave bodily harm without the ability to do anything ever. Besides solve all of science multiple times, it's sitting on the internet. But uniquity is not a word, Joe. The syllability comes from ubiquity and uniqueness. And again, what's the base, Joe? What's the base of language? All of sound, independent of a given language. The sound E. Uniqueness. Huh. Wow. That's a big shocker. But fat fuck Joe, he's just going to commit some more crimes. Who cares? Go red team. Go red team. Again, as somebody more fiscally conservative to you, as somebody that's been served at a fucking military capacity, and fat fuck Joe never has. Wow. It's just so much freedom. I mean, I just can't emphasize enough how much freedom this is. This is so fun. But that is what I woke up to today, is again, more fraud, racketeering, conspiracy, which I've lived every day of my life. A good point to point out, this is what scapegoating is. People literally just abuse the fuck out of me, and then just nobody cares, because everybody does it. It's happened my whole life. It will never stop. It will never change. So again, why is Joe Kernan not in jail is beyond me. Why Andrew Ross Sorkin is not in jail is beyond me. Why Becky Quick is not in prison is beyond me. But it's not really. They're privileged. They're part of the privileged class. They get a bitch and moan about the most privileged shit in the world, and nobody respects the Constitution. And then people like me who actually contribute to society get fucked out of everything. Awesome stuff. Really good examples for your kids. But we move on. And to our Spirit Airlines bailout conversation. I actually thought this was decent in terms of highlighting one of my points of just this public versus private is effectively nothing. Again, you already have security apparatus around you that is well past any one nation, country, state, anything. And it's already existent, happening, functioning every single day. But in general, we see this conversation of Spirit Airlines, right? Andrew Ross Sorkin's up there talking. This company's in trouble, private company. Should we have a government bailout? And Andrew Ross Sorkin's pretty much making the point of there's a blonde chick up there. She's blabbering on quite a bit. There was the two guests, one blonde chick, one brunette-haired guy. Becky Quick jumps in. The guy's not getting allowed to talk. But basically, Andrew Ross Sorkin's making the point that you have a private company getting bailed out, and she's making the point that you should bail them out, and then he's saying, okay, well, if they are going to get bailed out, they should be treated like a government employee and not a private company, highlighting and eliciting that the regulation is really different from a government entity and a private entity. But the overall point is correct of what they're talking about. I think what Andrew was making, but just the conversation in general, everybody wants transportation. Right? This is a critical infrastructure environment. Is Spirit Airlines critical infrastructure? I don't know. I don't know the distribution of how many flights and I don't know enough about airlines to know. I don't know enough about transportation, how much airline accounts for transportation as a whole. But is transportation critical infrastructure, right? I would say that's that is the behavior that human beings have accepted the most readily as risky but acceptable. Right? The most dangerous thing you can do on any given day is get in a motorized vehicle and drive on a car or drive on a road on a public road. Statistically, common sense wise, everything. But right, are people willing to risk grave bodily harm to move around and do stuff? Yes, obviously, it's never going to change. If you said, "Hey, man, we should outlaw cars," people would you wouldn't even be taken seriously. So we have this behavior. Human beings accept. We have some sort of risk for some sort of reward. Including grave bodily harm, right? You go to one gas station on one day and you get in a car accident and you die, you're like, I probably shouldn't have done that. But people get in their cars and go to the gas station every single day. But as we've covered, you should never be caught slipping at the gas station. So it's like one of those Aesop fables, but from Brad's Fables. And so the overall economic discussion and regulatory environment around the Spirit Airlines conversation highlights this again. Public, private regulation, it's all facilitating consent. Demand drives the vast majority of all economic anything, and then demand is want, and how do people get what they want? And if you take that away, then you get people like Joe Kernan saying, where's my freedom? And then you have people like Brad saying, here's the Constitution, brother, where's that? And he's like, oh, it doesn't matter, I just cheer for the red team because I'm a baby boomer with no thought to my brain. Yeah. That's what I hear come out of Joe Kernan. But highlighting overall, public-private demarcation doesn't really matter. I mean, everything is designed to facilitate consent, and that is where the economics goes. That is where the security apparatus that's around you that you're not even aware of already exists, already operates. The overall progression of law sentience in private/public industry just facilitates consent. And so you see that, because again, the chick's like, the blonde-haired lady that blabbered on way too long was sitting there saying like, well, we should have bailouts. We're going to lose all of these jobs, which again, your not quality jobs don't matter. You go raise a Series A, you hire somebody for 18 months, and they say, oh, I have a job for 18 months, and then you hop around. Again, the labor market bullshit of job hopping, of creating no new value, but all of those people that went to high school, maybe got a Nepo position, and their entire career is just selling random shit to other fucking idiots from high school. That's not net positive for the economy. And so your job is not that great. But again, we're back to the point of people in the labor market. My job and personal total compensation has to go up indefinitely, period. Nothing else makes sense. And then that's just not how business works. And then you work for a business, creating value. And then when you create real value, the economic output, the amount of profit or value that you create, the amount of income that you can create off of that is tremendous. Where you only have to have one really good idea. And so the amount of people that are benefiting from the labor market as a whole, from individual good ideas, is tremendously disproportionate. And so the money problem is completely solvable. People clamoring all over each other is truly terrible. The overall sentience from Joe Kernan is still terrible. Every single time, fire him, throw him in jail. I watch him attempting to do linguistical analysis, which again is still analysis, but I just put an adjective so you idiots know what's going on. Because nothing I say ever breaks. Like, none of this stuff is ever... I can show you the clip of the guy saying, like, everything you say is like... Because once you reach synchronicity, you can't, you don't get out of it. But uniquity, right, is ubiquity, and we're not going to go through. Joe Kernan, go to jail. Spirit Airline conversation, pretty interesting, but it's just a good example of this in the future that's already here that you're not aware of, is just facilitating consent. But overall, that was kind of the big point for this morning. Nothing really different on portfolio construction. Again, short a small amount of the CF that you can see here, pretty much right around the entry price. Again, the overall, headlines for the war I see is, diminishing impact overall. The last type of conviction I have is this CF, where it's like you get some sort of more movement towards a resolution. This kind of drops off. We haven't played anything appreciating off of this tension, and I don't even see that sentiment even present anymore at all. Again, have not really followed the past 2 days. I mean, I see a couple things here and there, but not enough to comment. But a little bit on because SanDisk. Okay, so SanDisk reports tomorrow after the bell. We are well over $1,000 a share. I expect a strong buying into today into tomorrow. Not really sure about today, definitely into tomorrow. Expecting right around, I would say, $1,250 to $1,400 is kind of what I'm seeing, what I'm expecting. Overall, again, just if I want to trade something that's looking for conviction, we kind of started following this just to, try to gauge momentum. Because this is these big appreciations are where you can see, if you're trying to make life-changing money, which we're over here just commenting on the market, but managing a trade, right, you need something that's moving a lot to make a lot of money. Or take a huge position, but if you don't have a lot of money to start with, you're more likely looking for something that's going to move a lot. And so, but this has just been trading strong. And again, the overall market cap is at $150 billion. And so kind of gauging, I have markets at all-time highs, NVIDIA at $5 trillion. And so kind of the upside, it's like what could a company be worth? However much value they provide. And so just emphasizing there's no real upside, but it kind of gives you just a expectation value of where something else can go. And so if we're looking at NVIDIA at $5 trillion, again, I haven't done infrastructure CapEx. What has NVIDIA been CapExing on? Look at me. I'm one of the new kids these days. But I don't know enough about the overall business operations of NVIDIA versus SanDisk. But when you're looking at $5 trillion at NVIDIA, and SanDisk, yep, we're sitting up well over 3,000%, but we're still at $150 billion for market cap. And so just that number alone, where it's could that double and go to 250 or 300 billion and still not be a blinking number? Yeah. Could it go to again 750? Because in comparison, we have Micron. I checked this morning. I want to say this is right around I want to say this is like 550, but 500 billion-ish. I guess we could just click it over here, Brad. Let's use our big brain cells. But yeah, so almost 600. So it's just like these numbers, and again, we're sector adjacent, if not directly sectored the same. Well, Micron sector the same. NVIDIA comparison to SanDisk. Again, still under definitely technology, definitely momentum of AI, memory sub AI. Trying to make sure I'm still talking to my microphone. But overall market cap numbers are not outrageous here, and I'm less bearish at like 1,000. Not to say I'm going to go long, and I definitely see there'll be a sell-off after the earnings report. But does that mean it's going to have a huge retracement? Again, I'm less convinced, and so I probably will trade SanDisk on the report. Almost certainly will enter. Expecting what I expect to happen is them report blowout numbers, the whole thing. Still having strong guidance into 2027, because again, when I think to execute a trade to capitalize on the downside of the breaking of the sentiment is when guidance starts looking weaker, not the overall numbers. That's not anything secret. That seems to be the overall reaction to earnings report in the environment in which I've been discussing economics. I don't really see it as changing, and I'm guessing it was pretty much the same before. Because the thing that's changed is just latency, right? I can sit here with a high-def camera and a microphone and be like, ooh, which one am I going to click? As opposed to running down to a stock exchange and exchanging through a broker. But the overall human behavior is about the same. And so going into tomorrow, we're going to have a report after the bell, 4:30. We'll have a number, then we'll have a conference call. Let's see what time that is. And so 4:30. Yeah, 4:30. I mean, that's pretty standard for a lot of after the bell earnings reports. Pretty much all of them. But what I've seen for the price action is a big spike after that. Then some sort of trading until I don't even really know, because we trade on Schwab. So this is the TD Ameritrade client that got bought by Schwab. But the bid and ask stops being active here, I think, at 8. Then you have some tickers that trade for 24 hours. Robinhood trades 24 hours on a lot of things. Everything's going to go to 24 hours. I mean, that's pretty inevitable in the same way. Commissions per entering a trade went to 0 pretty quick. But regardless, the price action that makes sense, timing, is report earnings. You're going to have a big spike if you want to try to trade that a little bit. But the absolute peak for these things is, if we this isn't, I don't have anything up here right now. But I was just thinking, what was I? I was thinking Intel. And so pretty much, again, the 5 to 6 in the morning pre-market of the day after they earn, or after they report. And so they report here. You can see, I'm trying to get come on, let's have some luck today, even though we don't have constitutional rights, so we can't really have luck. Why does this thing not want to work? Because nothing works. But so we report here, and we can see this time right here, 5:45 a.m. Between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. is typically when you have the biggest, you're entering the new day. It doesn't seem to be the sentiment from the previous day, but I don't know if enough people are up or not or something, but then you kind of sell off into it, and then you kind of go down. And this is always kind of the trade that I make for all of these earnings report beats, with the added consideration, this what I would say is front and center momentum. The tech AI bubble, I don't even know if it's a bubble, but just the excitement's definitely here. And so that's what's going on. That's how we're going to play it. I do want to trade it because I think it'll be a good trade, decent conviction, but not taking a huge position, not even doing the 4 shares again, probably just 1 share, maybe 2, but probably just 1. But looking to close probably at the end of the day or after what I would expect to be a sell-off. If that dynamic doesn't play out, it goes down after earnings or something, might not play it at all. But that's kind of that's what I'm going to execute if everything plays out the way I expect. But then looking to close, or probably, again, all of this stuff is active management. And so we'll play it by ear, but that is our perspective for going into tomorrow, managing SanDisk, which has kind of been our focus throughout this trading log. And so I did want to comment again on CAR. This was just the again, I did not check. When I see hard to borrow, I just immediately kind of click away, because typically, I don't say typically, but if you find the ones that are not, for whatever reason, they're hard to borrow, and some of the fees can be absolutely insane. And I still think they're overnight fees. So if you close before the end of the day, but just it's like, if you short it, like literally like 1,000% interest. It's just like, whoa. And so I did not look at cars. We would have tried a share here because this was just so unnatural. But obviously, it's just taken like K parts. See, this would not have been a good buy the dip. This wasn't dipping. This is not trading. I don't even know what the fuck this is. But just wanted to pop back in and oversay that I guess even if it says hard to borrow, check the actual fees, because the actual fees were like pennies. It's like 1%. And so on a couple shares, we would have taken like 1 or 2 shares. But the trading pattern, so like this versus SanDisk, this isn't natural trading. SanDisk is trading at a very high appreciation, but it's in this, is it a super cycle? It's like Big Sandy Superstore. This was just like, what is this? So this would have been a higher conviction, still very, very small position, and we just did not check the fee structure. And so that is what I have this morning. I did have, I guess, Elon Musk versus Sam Altman court proceedings. We have our super special Elon with his extended pack of chromosomes versus Sam Altman. Kind of just seems like a weirdo. That whole environment of, like, again, like tech CEOs, the Planeteer CEO, anyone involved with Peter Thiel is a weirdo. Yeah, just that whole environment is just weird. These tech bros, you go watch Bill Gates dancing from the Microsoft release. It's like the most herky-jerky movements, and you're like, what in the weird fuck is this? But overall, I've not followed the Elon Musk, Sam Altman court proceedings enough to comment anything. So that is what I have this morning. It is 9:25 a.m. Market's opening up in just under 5 minutes, and we will pop in later. Wednesday, April 29th, 1:28 p.m. What's up, everybody? Checking back in on the markets. We have CF pulled up. Since our last entry, we had an announcement or a tweet or more confirmation out of Washington, out of President Trump, that this naval blockade is going to stay up in hopes until the Iranians fold or concede on the enriched uranium, which I do not see as possible. So we're kind of more at a standstill. But we do have a pop or a reaction in our trade, CF, to the not great way. Again, small position, so that takes us to down minus $37, but still just right around our entry price, kind of highlighting, again, too early to say if it would be within our quote-unquote thesis, but just that we're going to have a weaker and weaker reaction to each sort of headline to the upside. War's new, and then next week it's less new, and then the month later, and then 2 months later it gets less and less new. And so we are seeing a little bit of pop, but just expecting this to giving us more, again, for that counter, for the reversal, some sort of announcement of progress on a resolution. And so we've kind of been middle ground, leaning towards the negative, kind of sided out to the negative, meaning, hey, this naval blockade's going to stay. We're not closer to a ceasefire or an indefinite ceasefire or something to that effect. So we did see a little reaction. That was right around noon. Nothing super new. I did add 2 shares, I think right around 126 and change or something. Certainly over 126. I'm not going to pull up the monitor page right now. Not that it just has the full account number on there, and I didn't notice that for a while, but nobody watches this stuff. But regardless, just 2 small shares. Don't really want to go too much bigger here. Might add up to, again, if we did get a bump into like the 130s, would add a couple more shares. But if I don't see it getting over 140, but that would be our thesis or our trade prospectus being wrong, or just some sort of continued stimulus where we do see a big reaction in one of these. Would certainly decrease my size above 140. Again, a sustained staying up there. Don't want to get underwater on something. Don't really expect that. Decent conviction, but we have this naval blockade announced that it's staying, and then we have this potential for further reversal. Not trying to scale in too big at all, but just kind of holding tight here. And so we did have, for our memory trade overall, Popping over to SanDisk, seeing a little intraday sag, but not, again, the prospectus is the same from the morning clip on the pre-market expectations. So I did wanted to point out the 4-digit psychology, right? We have this, I talk about it here and there. It's certainly verbiage you will see, or a consideration you'll see looking into trading material, is just whole dollar psychology. And so one of the things I wanted to point out and emphasize is 4 digits, it to me psychologically, literally from the visual of looking at the ticker, 166, 1066, and 1068. Once it goes to 4 digits, right, to go from 1,000 a share to 1,100 a share, psychologically, from a literal visual level, to me is easier than going from 900 to 1,000. And so you do get the whole number just in general, the concept of 1,000 being a very clean whole number, but very literally looking at a ticker symbol on a terminal like this, seeing the number go from 1,000 to 1,100 is less psychologically different than seeing it go from 900 to 1,000, literally like the digit placeholder. So wanted to point that out explicitly. I know we haven't covered that because that's kind of new. We haven't covered something in the $1,000 range before. But wanted to say that explicitly. Our prospectus for the overall movement going into earnings for SanDisk specifically is still intact. We are looking at Seagate now, STX. And so, like I said, these are all small positions. We don't want to lose any dollars, but if I was trading full time, this is something I would have known and referenced before. But that Seagate's earnings was yesterday or reported. And so if you see the clip from the beginning of this series or this section or this video, we were talking about, again, this pop immediately after the numbers reporting, this section right here, and then we trade a little bit and we kind of float up into that 8 p.m. hour when at least the level 2 on Thinkorswim dies down or shuts off completely if you're not trading a 24-hour stock. But then going into, again, pre-market, typically, like I said, 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. is when I see most reliably the highest price, and then kind of this drift down, sell off into open. Seagate did have this pop, so the highest price did happen after the market opened, which isn't abnormal in any way, shape, or form. On any given day, right? That first 3-minute candle, that first minute candle, you're going to get the most severe, the widest spreads, the most volatility, just because the market just opened up. And so, again, would have shorted, let's move my cute face, but again, right around like this time frame, it would have been looking. So like 687 would have been on the screen, but we get to 697 after the bell opens. So we will, going into SanDisk, where we are going to trade it because it's a trading log. You got to trade something. And so we'll take one share probably pre-market in that 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. time frame, and then I'll put another share up there for any sort of blowout top like this initial. This was okay. So this wasn't even the first candle. So this is 369, nice 12 minutes into the session. So maybe go for a share size of 2, and then as we discussed in the morning clip, this kind of selling off after the open. And so you'll still get on CNBC. Kelly Evans was just up there saying SanDisk or Seagate is up 10%, and it is. And it's just like you already missed this whole, this big pop over here. I'm sure they were talking about it probably. Again, I wasn't watching super close yesterday. But I'm assuming this hit the headlines to some extent. Certainly if you're following finance, you saw this. And then by the time you see it like midday the next day, like the biggest move has already kind of happened. And so this is like the bread and butter type of trade we look for, fading after an earnings pop. Absolutely nothing new in rocket science. Just trying to hone in on the actual time frames, share size, and trade something in our trade log. And so we had a good example, and this is exactly kind of what we're expecting for SanDisk itself. They just had a guest on there talking about the different capacities between Seagate, SanDisk, and Micron, and he seemed to think that Micron, just from his conversation, had like the least sustained run into the future. Re-emphasizing the guidance looking strong, certainly into the end of the year, right on track with what we're expecting. That's what I'm saying is managing the position tomorrow. We're going to be looking to close either at the end of the day, midday, any type of get into a place of profit. These days are volatile, like you see a candle like this, so if you put a stop loss, I mean, there's a risk that you just hit that and it's just like, that sucks, but anytime we're in profit, we're protecting stuff. As you can see, we have no position here, but just this is same sector, same exact trade, exactly kind of what we're expecting. So, and that's what you do for any trade, is just look to see how the other companies within that sector are reacting to whatever. Again, if you're trading earnings, it would be the earnings report. But any sort of just news cycle stimulus would all be kind of the same, in my opinion. And so we're looking for that. We had this Jay Powell. So we have Jay Powell's last Fed meeting, ? Potentially something, again, this Warsh guy is going to get confirmed. It looks like that's more convincing now in terms of the last time we talked about it. Some more fleeting conversation of fielding these questions about this $2.5 billion investigation that in one of the previous clips seemed to have been resolved, but just, the Federal Reserve moving on with their new appointee, see if he's going to get congressionally approved, and we have this last Fed meeting. No one's really expecting rate cuts, and so that seems to be the consensus, so my consensus is with everybody else. Again, we've talked about the Fed and the dual mandate enough to not bring that back up today. But that decision is at 2 p.m. We are currently sitting at 1:37 p.m. So big tech earnings are after the bell. I forget who the host was, but it seems that they were saying something like all of the stock market gets decided in the next 8 seconds or 90 seconds, but just the major companies all reporting earnings. And so Seagate is definitely more relevant to sector stock specific for us following SanDisk. Overall, I still see the tech environment earnings reports as relevant, still within technology, still within AI, so in some ancillary. I think the Seagate is more indicative of what SanDisk is going to do than the other big tech companies, but all of it, if for some reason everybody shits the bed and then it's really bad, might sell off before earnings tomorrow, but not really expecting that, and if that does happen, we're not going to play anything. No real conviction, again, in terms of overall. That's always what we're looking for, is conviction. Then we adjust our share size appropriately. But just as some sort of resolution headline is like the only kind of conviction we have, and that's the CF position. And so we do have a dividend coming up over there. It's like 50 cents a share, and we have like 20 shares, so it's $10. Still $10 is something, but kind of holding there. Again, that's our highest conviction. We've got to have some position for a trade log, I guess. I guess you don't, but I have the position open because I think it's going to go down. And so popped up a little more, 127. So for levels, again, here, technical levels to me, like this thing is not even like really trading, in my opinion. But we had the 127 a couple days ago. Kind of retreated real hard off it that day. Yeah, right here was like I was watching this, didn't really see what, just kind of rose up and then smacked down with no real new stimulus. Well, the appreciation was stimulated by some other headline, and then the retracement wasn't. But we're sitting right around that 127, which would be the higher level of this kind of channel of, again, weaker responses to continued conflict in the Hormuz Strait with Iran. And so that's what we're looking at here. Big tech earnings, and then the last kind of general economic talking point was the California wealth tax, which again, if I feel like we've covered this quite a bit, but a bunch of people leaving the state of California for tax benefits. And so just in general, again, if your community makes any sense, people want to give back to the community, want to contribute. Absolutely zero people want to contribute to inefficiency, to waste money, and that's the biggest reality of the tax environment, is like, hey, I'm going to take my money that I worked for and give it to Billy at the IRS or, some sort of governmental entitlement distribution system, and they're going to be way more inefficient with me because, it just doesn't make any sense. And so in a system where the tax dollars are used efficiently and efficaciously, they get shit done, people are going to want to buy into that system. That is not the system that we have. And so I personally, if I was again had constitutional rights and was allowed to run a business and live a life, but that's obviously never going to happen, I would absolutely jump around, go to wherever the least tax obligations were. And if the society made any sense whatsoever, I would happily pay one of the higher tax brackets to contribute to the community. There's only so much shit you can buy, and if you really create a lot of value, you get so much shit it doesn't matter. And so again, we're back to the mid-level labor market who creates no value whatsoever but still wants a high quality of life. Oh, you're the biggest drag of the society. That is for sure. And so extreme wealth comes with actual value generation or inheritance, which to me in my book is no different. People are like, oh, you didn't work for it. Who gives a fuck? Life isn't fair. And that's one of the situations where it's not like bitching life isn't fair. It's just people are born into different situations. And so, but wasting money to me always doesn't make sense. Are you in an environment where taxation is not executed properly? Yes. And so it's just like expected, not surprising. I think Jensen Huang was the only guy who was like, yeah, I'm going to stay in California. But that's just my quick thoughts there. Something I'm sure we've covered before. And so, yeah, I think that is it for this afternoon check-in, sitting right around 127 on CF, 110.67 on SanDisk, and looking for this Fed decision, not expecting anything major for our trading, not expecting a rate cut, just kind of expecting neutral, expecting the same, and just looking for this transition from Jay Powell to Warsh. So that's what I got for you today, finishing up at 1:42 p.m., and we will check in later. Wednesday, April 29th, 4:10 p.m. What's up, everybody? Couple finalizing thoughts for today's trading session. Since the last clip, we had Jerome Powell's Fed meeting, his last Fed meeting. I guess the Kevin Warsh's approval process is going through Congress, and it went well. And this is officially Jay Powell's was his last meeting. Rates did not change. That's what we expected. That's what happened. And then we had the meeting, watched a little bit of it, nothing of note or for me to comment, no insight. And so we are currently looking at Microsoft, a couple just quick points, just big tech, the big major companies for the major indices, Google, Microsoft, Meta, and somebody else just reported. And so that was the big discussion, or one of the big talking points throughout the day. And so we've kind of had a mixed reaction. Microsoft, again, when I'm sitting here talking about, playing earnings post-market or after the market, post-earnings, stuff like that, this is the initial kind of pop time zone, even more so probably 6 minutes ago. It's 4:11 right now, but you can see this big pop, the initial numbers come through, and then you have some sort of reaction to that. We did play that out on American Eagle. None of these companies I've been following close enough to even attempt. And so I have no opinion on the earnings report, just a couple quick comments on the actual trading of the post-market. So we pop on over to Google and kind of a different thing. Again, we popped up and we've stayed up over here. And so, and let's see Meta. But these are the three big ones. Meta kind of just tanked out off the beginning, but point being, for our takeaway, for our commentary, we just have a mixed reaction. And so, as we said this afternoon, or earlier this afternoon, paying attention to these, but not nearly as specific as Seagate for our SanDisk or just overall memory trade in general. Intel did catch my eye again. That's about it for the big tech earnings. Again, I have no opinion, not really trading any of them. And we'll just see how they settle out into the morning tomorrow. So Intel did come back up today, which we've been following a little bit, but just another one of these sitting right around $500 billion of market cap. Substantial movement upwards, still within this technology kind of AI, but not memory sector trade momentum thing. And so popped back up, nothing really to say, no position on anything, except for that small one on CF and the other little ones we've been covering, but just keeping an eye on these different things. Looking to trade SanDisk into the earnings or post-earnings into Friday morning. And so just some brief thoughts, some brief commentary on these. Anything else? Can the interest rates stay the same? And just kind of a quick comment on big tech was all I really had. And so we did trade the ATAI and DFTX kind of traded down all of the gains, or again, given back all of the gains from that executive order. Again, these ones where it's one of these things where it's like, this is the sector that I'm more bullish on in terms of like, I want to hold something. I mean, the big announcements could come at any time. I certainly don't expect them imminently, but then you creep up 100, 200, 300%, and then you get a couple big announcements. Again, the science and the policy just needs to make sense here. But just wanted to comment, we did kind of give away all of the appreciation from that executive order, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Regardless, looking to re-enter the SPYI or the QQQI as sort of like a day trade, not really like a swing trade, but with a cash position, not on margin, that I can just hold for income, but looking to trade around those. And so those are the final thoughts I have for today, Wednesday, April 29th. It is 4:14 p.m., and we will check in later.